Videos like this are made possible by my wonderful supporters on Patreon. Check the link below if you'd like to join them, and even get access to exclusive content. If you've clicked on this video, then I'm sure that I don't need to explain to you the concept of PlayStation Network trophies. But for the sake of this intro, I'm going to anyway. They're these little awards that you get for completing certain tasks and milestones within a game, graded as either bronze, silver or gold depending on their perceived difficulty, with a final platinum trophy given out for acquiring all others. At the end of the day, PSN trophies don't really mean anything, but that hasn't stopped people from obsessing over them. For most, they're simply a bragging right, but they can also say something about the games themselves. Since their introduction on the PS3 back in 2008, there have been 4 mainline Gran Turismo games with trophies to collect. Today, I want to talk about each of them, with a spotlight on the trophies that I think are the most challenging, and also the most interesting. Like many other things in this series, Gran Turismo's trophies have their fair share of quirks and oddities. From ones that seem pretty random, to others with vague or misleading descriptions, and even a few that you could call downright sadistic. When you break it down, there really is a bit of everything. So let me take you on a journey through PSN trophies in Gran Turismo. Our quest begins with Gran Turismo 5. Now to be honest, the majority of the trophies in this game are run-of-the-mill. They mostly center on the completion of things within the career. Races, license tests, special events, etc. But at the same time, there are some quirkier ones. One that always stood out to me is Take Your Honda Home. This trophy is specific to the Tokyo Route 246 circuit, leveraging the fact that Honda's head office can be seen as part of the scenery on the pit straight. As such, photographing a Honda car in front of the Honda building is a fun idea for a trophy. Whilst trophies can be used as a way to really test players, as we'll soon see, they can also act as an incentive for players to experience different things. Prior to GT5, flipping your car over simply wasn't possible within the physics engine. So to highlight the fact that it could now be done, they came up with the rollover trophy. When you think about it, rewarding players for crashing is kind of odd, and it's not even the only trophy in the game that does this. Watch Out for Falling Objects requires you to lose a part of your car whilst driving, something that was also introduced in GT5, and it's actually the only game in the series where it's even possible. The 2008 World Rally cars and 2007 Blitz Skyline are the only ones in the game that can actually lose bodywork such as doors. So to get this trophy, you just have to keep slamming into walls or other cars until something eventually falls off, a process which can take as long as 10 minutes from my experience. While some trophies make it very clear what you have to do to earn them, others leave a lot more room for interpretation. Take Multi-Millionaire, which states that you need to possess an insane amount of money. But how much is an insane amount of money? Well, according to the game, it's 10 million credits, but the only way to find that out is by earning that much money and thus getting the trophy. The same is true for High Roller, where a seriously expensive car means one costing at least 100,000 credits, Sky High Roller, where that's up to 1 million credits, and Looney Tune, where you need to spend 500,000 credits on tuning. In that final case, the description is also a bit misleading, as it seems to imply that you have to spend that amount on tuning for just one car, but in actuality it's a cumulative total spent across all cars. A trophy that's deceptively challenging to get is Penniless. The two easiest methods are either attempting this right at the start of the game, where you have a nice round 20,000 credits to spend, or saving up the maximum 20 million credits and then splurging it all on one car. During the course of the game, you normally end up with an uneven amount of money, which makes it very difficult to get down to exactly zero. When it comes to the most left-field trophy in this game, and possibly the entire series, for me it's a tie between two very similar ones. Much like Take Your Honda Home, Portraitist and Picture Exclusive require you to take in-game photos of specific things, but the difference is that neither of them involve any cars. For Portraitist, you need to head to the Bern Marktgasse photo travel location and find this blonde woman holding a phone. With Picture Exclusive, Kyoto Gion is your destination, and this grey-haired man leaning on a bridge your target. In both cases, you need to take a picture where their faces are clearly visible and in focus to get the respective trophy. Now, I've tried to do some research into whether these two characters are supposed to represent real people, but there doesn't seem to be any information out there. The description for Picture Exclusive describes the man as a special someone, which only adds to the intrigue. These are certainly two very curious trophies. GT5 has some trophies that aren't exactly difficult, but rather quite time-consuming. The Air of Experience, for example, requires you to do at least 500 B-Spec races, although the description is once again quite vague, and Car Collector needs you to amass 1,000 cars total in your garage. It's honestly kind of insulting that both are merely bronze grade. However, in terms of challenge, they are nothing in comparison to Gold Standard. To get this trophy, you have to fully 100% the career mode by winning every race, and getting gold awards on every single license test and special events. Bear in mind that GT5's career has a full suite of endurance races, including 2 24-hour events, and that the Sebastian Vettel X Challenge has possibly the toughest gold times in Gran Turismo history. Not only that, but there's also a considerable XP grind to get to level 40, and thus unlock the final few events. All in all, getting GT5's Platinum Trophy requires some immense dedication, but even if you manage all of that, I've got some bad news. There are 2 trophies which unfortunately require an online connection, and thus cannot be achieved post-2014 server shutdown. These are Proud Owner and Course Designer, both of which need players to share content that they've made, something which is now impossible. Swiftly moving on from that disappointment, let's head onwards to Gran Turismo 6. This game is actually the only one of the 4 I'll be covering today that doesn't require an online connection for any of its trophies, meaning that its platinum is still doable. Along with that, GT6 is also a much shorter and easier game to complete than GT5, so getting all of its trophies isn't impossible for the average player to do. For example, David and Goliath sounds tough on paper, winning a race with a limit of at least 620 performance points, using a car at least 100 points under that limit. However, a lot of events in this game have quite lenient performance point limits to begin with, and the AI really don't put up much of a challenge. The trophy that you're likely to have the most trouble with is getting all golds on the S license. Doing that is a lot easier than in previous games, but it's still not a free pass. Note, there's also a trophy for getting all golds in the Ayrton Senna Tribute DLC, which I think is considerably tougher. But being part of a DLC pack, it's not required for the platinum. As for the trophies that stand out for being strange or interesting, there are a few. The one that always struck me for being particularly random and pointless is Hidden Gem. All you have to do is drive into some blue tyres found in the runoff area at the final corner at Mount Panorama. Of course, this one is more of an Easter egg hunt, since it's left up to you to find where these tyres are. But regardless, I always felt like they could have put something more interesting for players to find. Like with GT5, there are a handful of trophies with vague requirements, once again in relation to credits you need to spend on tuning. These are Valued Customer, VIP Customer, and Angel Investor. I really don't understand why when it comes to money they never give you exact figures, whereas with other metrics, such as trophies where you have to drive a certain distance, they're far more specific. Just another weird, overlooked quirk of these games. One Make Wonder Win is another trophy where the description isn't entirely clear. What do they mean by come from behind? Do you have to be in last place and overtake everyone on the final lap? Well, the answer is actually a bit simpler. All you have to do is overtake the leader in the zone between the start of the grid markings and the finish line on the final lap. Getting your timing right is probably the trickiest part, but once you know what you need to do, it isn't really that hard. As such, it makes sense that it's only a bronze trophy, but that does overlook one detail. According to PSN, 2.8% of players have achieved all golds on the S license, but only 1.9% have One Make Wonder Win. If anything, this might just be an indictment on how pointless the One Make races are in GT6, and thus how few people played them at all. The final trophy from GT6 that I want to mention is the quite unique Who's Laughing Now? To get this one, you have to head into the final race of a championship in 3rd place or lower, but still finish 1st overall. The easiest way to achieve this is in the 3-race Novice Championship. What you have to do is finish 2nd in the first 2 races, but make sure that in race 2, the opponents that finish 1st and 3rd in race 1 are the other way around. Doing this naturally is nigh on impossible, so you will have to manipulate the AI's positions. All you need to do then is win race 3, and with it the championship. As far as I can tell, this is the only trophy across each of the games that technically requires you to lose a race. What this means is that it's impossible to get GT6's Platinum trophy and also have a 100% win record at the same time. That's kinda bizarre. Now, jumping over to Gran Turismo Sport, I have to say that its trophy game is kinda weak. There aren't really any that require you to go out of your way and do something unusual, or play the game in a different way. It's all just straightforward completion and milestones that you would naturally end up doing if you play the game for long enough. It seems that Polyphony's creative juices weren't really flowing. There are a couple in which you have to take scapes photos of a specific car at a specific track, but that's about as close as this game comes to anything unique. No, when it comes to trophies, GT Sport is almost entirely remembered for being an insane grind to platinum. There are 3 in particular which are tied to sport mode, and thus can no longer be completed. Record number of races needs you to finish 322 races within sport mode, matching Rubens Barrichello's record of F1 race starts at the time. Record number of wins follows the same logic, equaling Michael Schumacher's former record of 91 F1 victories. The third trophy of this trio is Certified Genius, where the task is to match Ayrton Senna's tally of 65 F1 pole positions. What's unique about this one is that although each of the F1 records referenced have since been broken, Senna's 65 pole positions had already been surpassed by the time the game came out. First by Michael Schumacher in 2006, and then Lewis Hamilton in 2017. I don't think that this was an error, but rather a way to honour Senna's legacy. The name of the trophy even hints at that. Whilst record number of races was certainly the easiest of the 3 to achieve, they all required a huge time investment. As anyone who's tried knows, winning just one sport mode race is an achievement, so to manage 90 more is a serious challenge even for some of the best players out there. But incredibly, there is another trophy that was considered to be an even bigger roadblock to getting platinum. Ultimate Driver tasks you with getting to the maximum level 50. It sounds simple, but GT Sport's level system makes GT5s look reasonable by comparison. Whilst the first 30-ish levels are very much achievable, beyond that point things get incredibly drawn out. The final 10 levels in particular are simply torturous. If you played a lot of sport mode, the XP you got from that would have helped you out, but that's no longer an option in current day. There were previously exploits to help speed things up, but they've since been patched out. Given that this game doesn't have a fully fleshed out career mode, you're likely going to have to replay the same GT League races over and over again. When it comes to sheer time investment needed to get platinum, no other Gran Turismo game comes close to this one. Now we arrive in current day with Gran Turismo 7. It seems that following the savagery that was GT Sports, they made a conscious effort to course correct with GT7. Whilst there are still a few tough ones, none of the trophies require the same level of playtime as the previous game. For example, instead of completing 322 races in sport mode, you now only need to do 50 to earn the respective trophy, and there aren't any for getting a certain number of pole positions or race wins either. Even though the level system is far quicker to max out than it was in GT Sports, there are no trophies tied to it, and that makes life so much easier. The trophy that now acts as the main gatekeeper for platinum is Hard Work Pays Off, which entails getting gold on every single license test from the base game. Overall, the license tests in GT7 are the hardest they've been since GT5 or maybe even GT4, so this will present a decent challenge for most players. On the topic of license tests, I think it's worth mentioning Rain Royalty, as its description mentions a rain license. There is no such thing as a rain license in GT7. To get this trophy, you just have to beat 3 specific license tests that all take place in wet conditions: A5, IB6, and IA7. This could be yet another example of these games being obtuse when it comes to trophy descriptions, or maybe they really did plan to have a separate rain license, and this trophy is actually a leftover. There are trophies that require you to do certain things whilst on track, like we've seen in previous games. One that I feel is worth mentioning is Done in 60 Seconds. Its name likely a reference to the film Gone in 60 Seconds. Whilst the target is fairly basic, just lap Tsukuba in under a minute, I like how this calls back to the real-life time attack scene, in which a sub 60-second lap is a very significant milestone. Beyond that, a lot of the trophies in this game are tied to doing specific things outside of driving or total completion, whether that be applying certain tuning parts, doing car maintenance in GT Auto, or even buying particular types of cars. Overall, I find them to be more expansive than GT Sport when it comes to exploring different areas of the game and making use of various options. That said, GT7 does do something that we've never seen before by copying over a couple of trophies directly from its predecessor. Both Memento from the Nürburgring and Memento from Le Mans reappear in this game exactly as they were. Fun fact, they're actually two of the rarest trophies in this game, having been acquired by less than 2% of players. As for the rarest trophy, outside of the Platinum of course, that goes to 3 legendary cars. Prior to release, there was some speculation as to what the 3 cars in question could be, as the only hint given is that they were once destined to win 24-hour races. One suggestion was that it could be referring to the 3 1960s prototypes introduced in GT5, the Ford Mark IV, Ferrari 330 P4, and Jaguar XJ13. These cars were the subject of the Dream Race trophy back in their debut game, and it turns out that they're also the 3 legendary cars being referenced in GT7. Each of them can be purchased at various times through the Legend Cars dealership for roughly 40 million credits in total. Back when the game came out, to make that amount of money would have put you on a ridiculous grind. But whilst it will still take some time, since then they've added many more avenues to make money quickly, so getting these cars isn't totally beyond the realms of possibility for the average player. Once again though, we have to scrutinise that description. It's the wording "once destined to win 24-hour races" that gets me. In real life, both the Ford and Ferrari won 24-hour races at Le Mans and Daytona respectively, but the Jag was a stillborn project that never competed in anger. I get the feeling that they worded it this way to make them seem more grandiose, compared to a straightforward description that just names them directly. But the side effect of them doing this is that it just adds a layer of unnecessary confusion, and as we've seen, that's nothing new. So, what did we learn today? Well, honestly, there's only so much you can take away. PSN trophies are just a novelty and not an integral part of each game, so their impact will always be quite limited. Personally, it's hard for me to feel that strongly about them one way or the other. That said, there are some conclusions that I've come to. I think that GT5 has the most interesting and varied selection of trophies, whereas GT Sport definitely has the hardest and most time-consuming ones. Staying on brand, GT6 puts up the least amount of challenge in this area. We can also observe a trend of one game being tough to platinum, and then the next in the series being relatively easy. Following this pattern, we can assume that the trophies in Gran Turismo 8 will likely be a bit tougher than GT7. At least that's my prediction. Like with many other games, the presence of trophies that require you to be online is a frustration, since when the servers eventually get shut down, you can no longer acquire them, and by extension, the Platinum too. As I mentioned, GT5 has 2 trophies that suffer from this, and GT Sport has 3, the ones that are tied to Sport mode. With GT7, given that an online connection is required to do basically anything, pretty much every trophy is unattainable when you're offline. Assuming that this game gets the same treatment as GT Sport at the end of its life, by which I mean the single player portion finally being made accessible without having to connect to the internet, there will still be a couple of Sport mode trophies that remain forever elusive. Given that I'm not the biggest trophy hunter out there will be people who are more qualified to talk on this subject, and I'm sure they will make themselves known in the comments below. In case you were wondering about my personal Gran Turismo trophy haul, I have platinums on both GT6 and GT Sport. I could very easily get one on GT7 as well, but my desire for total completion doesn't outweigh the lack of desire I have for doing more sport mode races. GT6 is the only game where I've gone out of my way to purposefully get all of the trophies. As bizarre as it might sound given the scale of the challenge, I never set out to acquire GT Sport's Platinum. It just happened naturally. The fact that I used to be a massive sport mode tryhard is the main reason for how this is possible. But I think it's pretty funny that one of my greatest achievements in Gran Turismo was almost entirely incidental.